Today, we have chosen to highlight an important event where an eminent Nobel laureate, Professor David J Gross, has recently delivered his speech addressing to the students who attended a virtual convocations from their locations. IIT-Madras on Sunday convened its 57th convocations virtually with mixed reality mode for the first time, where Professor Gross warned the students of several important things and asked them to stay responsible to spread awareness and wipe out ignorance. Drawing attention to massive inequalities, the persistence of useless war and violence, the danger of fundamentalism and terrorism, threats to the environment and to the health of our planet, theoretical physicist David J Gross, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2004, said, "The world is undergoing rapid change, and as the event of the last few months show, no one can predict what will happen next week, much less beyond that. The same is true of science, and one's career is science. I take this occasion to warn all of the continuing and indeed worsening danger of nuclear weapons whose use could destroy all life on the planet. We must not ignore it," Professor Gross said. Watch what Professor Gross had spoken in the convocations. Here is a report by Hummingbird News.
The world is undergoing rapid change, and as the events of the last few months show, no one can predict what will happen next week, much less beyond that. The same is true of science and of one's career in science. And there are many problems and dangers that we all face. The massive inequalities that exist within and among nations. The persistence of useless war and violence. The danger of fanaticism and terror. The threats to the environment and to the health of our planet. None of us could have predicted that in the last months of 2019, a deadly virus would emerge and spread rapidly across the world. However, many scientists predicted that such a pandemic would inevitably arise, yet their warnings were largely ignored. Similarly, many scientists warn of impending disasters due to global warming and climate change, yet these warnings are not being sufficiently addressed. And I take this occasion to warn you all of the continuing and indeed worsening danger of nuclear weapons whose use could destroy all life on the planet. We must not ignore this warning. Life is not made of years, but of moments. As we look back on our life, what we remember is a collection of moments. None of us remember our beginning, and none of us will remember our end. Most other remembered moments that mark our years are both endings and beginnings. This moment, too, is both a beginning and an ending. For many of you, it's the end of college tuition, and perhaps the beginning of repayment of student loans. For many of you, it's the end of the process in which you absorb past knowledge and the beginning of the process where you begin to apply that knowledge or start to pass it on to the next generation. For many of you, it's the end of formal education and the beginning of so-called real life. For many of you, it's the end of the period in life where you receive from your parents and society, and the beginning of the period where you give back to society. And there is much that you can give back, for you are a privileged lot. You are privileged to be citizens of a rapidly growing country with a rich and glorious history that is now moving to take its rightful place in the world. You are fortunate to have lived free of the disease and the hunger and the war that plagued much of humanity for most of time. You are privileged to have attended a great institute of learning and to have acquired much knowledge. You live better than kings and queens did only a few hundred years ago. You know more than the greatest scholars did only a few generations ago. But with all these privileges comes the responsibility to use your knowledge to improve the lot of the less fortunate in your country and around the world, to tackle the many problems and confront the many dangers that my generation has left for you to deal with. The cause of many of these problems is sheer ignorance. The ignorance of the science that could solve many of the world's problems, the ignorance of basic facts, such as the fact that all of us had a single mother only a few thousand generations ago, that make racism and bigotry still possible, and the ignorance of other cultures that promotes fanatical nationalism. As the possessors of the knowledge of the 21st century, you have the responsibility to be forces for enlightenment and strive to dispel this ignorance. But ignorance is not all bad. Thomas Jefferson said, "Ignorance is preferable to error, and he is less remote from the truth who believes nothing than he who believes what is wrong." The greatest obstacle to progress is not ignorance, but the illusion of knowledge. The reason that fundamentalists are so dangerous is not that they are ignorant, but they are so certain that they possess the absolute truth. It is this certainty that can lead to repression, bigotry, racism, and fanaticism. The main lesson of science are not the partial truths that we labor to reveal, but our attitude of skepticism towards these truths. We must always remain skeptical, always question our beliefs and confront them with nature. And ignorance itself is not so bad. I often say that the most important product of knowledge is ignorance. As knowledge increases, so does ignorance. The more we know, the more we are aware of what we know not. The questions we ask today are more profound and more interesting than those we asked years ago when I was a student. Take a chance. Take a chance to make a difference in all aspects of life. Do not sell your dreams short. Do not be afraid to follow your most ambitious plans and pursue your most outlandish ideas. Dare to connect with other human beings and to love deeply. And if you do, there will be many moments like this, moments of triumphant endings and moments of hopeful beginnings. Thank you and good luck.
If you like this video, please subscribe, like and share. Hit the bell icon for upcoming events.